of attention to me. Just a little disclaimer that I am not going to give you specific financial advice. I'm not here as a financial advisor. I'm just going to talk about the basics of finances and how, hopefully, as we walk down a path together today, and sometimes dealing with finances is like going up a mountain. So I have a pictorial representation of that for you. But when we get to the top of the mountain, hopefully you've learned some things that are going to help you be happier and more healthy in a financial way. The thing about finances is that if you look at some statistics, one of the leading causes of divorce is disagreements about finances or just improper handling of finances. The leading cause of male suicide is financial problems. And so finances has a big role in our life, whether we like to acknowledge it or not. So we're going to start down our path. There we go. Yep. So it is the road to a better tomorrow if you can handle your finances more appropriately. So first thing we're going to focus on is needs and wants. And this is a big topic and has to come up first because this is really where a lot of people go off track. Is they have a really hard time determining the difference between what they actually need and what they want. And those two things blur a lot in people's lives. Because we convince ourselves, and there's marketers out there that convince us, there's friends and family that convince us that we need certain things. And a lot of times those things might be the same thing. For instance, you may actually need a cell phone. A lot of people in today's world do. But do you need the iPhone 7 that's coming out or just did come out? Or can you get by with a different phone that's cheaper or one you've had for a while? You don't necessarily need the latest one. All of us need transportation of some nature. But do we need the latest released automobile? Do we need one that holds 7 passengers, or is it just, like for instance, me and my spouse? They're the only ones at home anymore. Our kids are gone, off doing their own thing. So do we need a minivan? Probably not. Do we need a Cadillac Escalade? Probably not. We could get by just fine with one vehicle, and because both of us walk to work, we have that advantage. We happen to live right next to the high school, so we can walk to work. So we're going to do a little exercise to start with to get our minds in the right area. So if you just want to take a couple minutes, think about your top spending priorities during any month. I've listed 10 blanks there. So start with the one you spend the most money on. Maybe it's a mortgage, something like that. And list them out, top 10 things you spend. Once you have them listed then, categorize them. Is that a need or is that a want? And it might be, like I said, one of each. For instance, you may have a home mortgage, but do you live in the size of house that you really need? Or have you decided, yeah, you know what, I want to have a 6-bedroom, 5-bathroom house on the golf course just because I want it? And that's fine. You know what, you could do that, but if it's causing you financial problems, then it's an issue. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Think about what you need and what you want. You don't have to fill in all the blanks. I just gave you 10. So for the essence of time, continue working on it if you like. You can also, this is not homework. You can take it, you don't have to turn it in to me. I'm not going to grade you. So you can take it home with you, reflect on it, think about it, work on it. And as I always tell my students at school, there's a lot of things that get blurred. Like, for instance, we all need some form of entertainment in our life, but do we have to be entertained every day? We all need clothing, but do we need the latest fashions? Those type of things. And none of those things are bad. That's the thing you need to think about. But what can I afford within my budget right now? And what do I want to do in the future? That's the big thing, is that what goals do I have set for the future? Where do I want to get? Do I want to get to the top of that mountain? Or do I want to be stuck where I have to be a Walmart greeter when I'm 80 because I can't get by? You know, that's not that there's anything wrong with Walmart greeters. I think it might be fun, actually, someday. But, so once you decide on what your true needs and wants are, then you absolutely have to have some form of a budget. That's kind of scary for some people because it involves math and writing things down and getting specific. And that's okay, and the key is to write it down somehow. You can use a computer, you can use a piece of paper and a pencil, that's fine. But you need to list out all of your income and all of your expenses and see if it actually balances. Because a lot of people just go by month to month saying, do I have money in my bank account? I must be doing okay. And that's okay, but that will never get you where you want to go. Because you'll just end up spending all your money. You probably won't save much. You probably won't invest much. You'll just say, okay, I'm getting by. And that's fine. There's always the thing out there in politicals, it's political campaign season. There's always the term comes up, people that are on fixed incomes. I don't know about you, but my income is fixed too. I can't just go to the superintendent and say, hey, I'm a little short this month. Can I have an extra $500? You know, I mean, my income is fixed year to year. When the year starts, I know what I'm going to make. So it's not just people on Social Security. Unless you're a salesperson or somebody that works on commission, your income is pretty much fixed for the year. I mean, I suppose you could go out and get a second job. That's a possibility if you really need to. And not a bad idea if you're in trouble. So you know what your income is going to be for the most part, and you know what your expenses are. And if they don't balance, then you have to figure out, well, I either need to make more money or I need to cut out some expenses. It's as simple as that. Now, that's a hard choice a lot of times, but it is pretty simple in the whole scheme of things. So once we budget, then first thing you always have to do is plan for emergencies and unexpected expenses, because you know what? They will happen to all of us. We'll have an accident, we'll get sick, something will happen that we don't plan on in our lives. And we need to plan for those by setting aside money for them. And the thing you need to think about is that credit cards are not for emergencies. So often, I've even heard financial planners say, well, you have a credit card for emergencies. No, you don't have a credit card for emergencies. If you want to use a credit card, that's fine, as long as you budget in and know exactly what you're spending every month and pay it off every month. That's fine if you like to put your expenses together in one bill, or like sometimes you'll use it, some people get all about the rewards, credit cards, you know, and you build up. That can be a dangerous thing. But if you're good at managing your finances, you can do that. But they are not for emergencies. Your emergency fund is for emergencies. Credit cards are for convenience and for safety. Because when you travel, it obviously is easier to use a credit card than cash. I mean, that's just flat out true. But don't think of them as an emergency backup for your finances. And the thing you want to do is for your emergency fund, eventually, you can start out small, but you would really like to have 3 to 6 months of expenses in the bank that sits there that you don't touch, unless an emergency comes up. So if you get up in the morning, fall down, break your leg, and you've got a high deductible insurance policy, you've got that set aside. If your car crashes and you've got like a larger deductible on your insurance, then you've got that there. And then once you use it, you replenish it. If you lose your job for some reason, you can get by. It's not a dire emergency for you to go out and get a job tomorrow, because you've got 3 to 6 months of your expenses saved up. And you can live for a little bit and take a breath and say, okay, now what am I going to do now? And you don't have to freak out about it, because you've got that safety net sitting there for you. Can that take a little while to build up? It can, but if you make it a priority in your budget, it can be done. And it can be done fairly quickly, actually, for a lot of people. If you really look at your needs and wants again and say, do I need an emergency fund? Yes, I do. Do I want a new car? Yes. Well, which is more important? The need of the emergency fund is more important right now. Okay, so then, next step is getting rid of our debt. Right now, interest rates are really low, which is attractive. And makes people think, well, maybe I don't want to pay off my mortgage faster than I have to. But you know what? Even 3, 4, 5% interest is money that you don't have. It's going to the bank. I have nothing against banks. It's perfectly fine that they make money on interest. But if you don't have to pay them that interest, then why would you? If you can get rid of that debt as fast as possible, that's just a little bit more that you have in your bank account. Now there's the whole thing, I know some people bring up, well, I get to deduct my mortgage interest from my taxes. That's true, but in the long run, if you get rid of that debt, you're going to be able to take that money and do something with it. Maybe take it and invest it, and you can still remove it from your taxes. So don't think that just sitting there and going on with debt all your life is a necessity. You can get rid of that, and you can live debt-free if you really want to. People even buy cars with cash. They actually do it. I know it's not easy, but if you want to, you can do it. Buying a house with cash, that's a little tougher. I have heard of people doing it, though. They like save up and buy a really small house to start with and then work their way up. People have done it. It's very hard. You have to be very disciplined, but it is possible. I'm not saying you should go out and buy a house with cash unless you have the money, but hey, it is possible. It's possible to do a lot of things with your money if you really, really want to. So. Next step, if you have children, or think you might even someday, please consider starting a college fund for them. Student loan debt is becoming a crisis in America because kids think that I can just go out and load up on that debt and worry about it later. Well, you know what? When it comes to be later, it can be a major noose around their neck that they just can't get out of because, you know what? You cannot get rid of student loan debt in bankruptcy. It's with you your entire life, no matter what happens to you. It is not dischargeable in bankruptcy. So, please tell your kids, if you have kids, that be very careful about student loans. And you know what? There are ways to go to college that are cheaper than some other ways. Some schools are much cheaper than others. And be very careful. If you're out there right now, when your kids are looking for colleges, there are some, what I would call unscrupulous practices by some schools trying to entice kids to come to their school, and they don't tell you the whole truth about what it's going to cost. I've actually seen one out there where they list out, okay, I'm comparing myself to another college, and they'll list what it's all going to cost, and in there they list out student loans in very small print. Some of this is student loans. Well, that's part of the cost. You know, it's like it's not comparing apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. Because one of the schools is, this is the amount you pay. Now, you want to pay it in cash, you want to pay it in student loan, fine. The other one is, this is the amount you pay, we're going to give you these certain scholarships, and then you're going to take out a student loan, and look, it equals. Well, it doesn't equal. So just be very careful about what you're going to pay in the end. Student loans can be, and you can start up, there's things called 504 plans, the state of Iowa, they're all across the nation. You can start saving as soon as your child is born and get tax deductions for the money you put in, which are very nice plans. You can look at those. Grandparents can put in money for them. Anybody can put in money for the child, as long as they designate it to a child and get a tax deduction for it. So that's a great way to start saving for college. Okay, next. This can be a tough one for some people. But if you set your mind on investing 10 to 15% of your income into a retirement account, you can really reap some benefits later on. Especially, now I know none of you are 20 years old, but if you can convince your children to start doing this as soon as they get a job, they can be so much better off than we ever thought we were going to be when we retire. I'll give you an example. My son is in the Air Force, and Now, if you stay in the Air Force for like 20 years, you get a pretty good pension anyway. A lot of people don't do that. When he went in, he didn't know how long he was going to stay in. And I don't think he still does. He's been in 5 years now. But he's seriously considering re-enlisting and probably staying in for 20 years. He likes it. But at the beginning, they gave him the option of setting up a retirement account with the government. It's similar to a 401k that we would have in the private sector. And they could put any percent of their income in there. Now, the government doesn't match anything. So you may have, I don't know what the hospital offers here, but you may have a 401k with a match. If you do, my gosh, take advantage of that, because that's just free money you're giving away. If they don't do that, put in as much as you possibly can. Anyway, we set it up, and I set it up for him. So I said, we're going to do this right. And he's having 15% of his income taken out every month, put into this account, and with the returns that he's been getting for the last 4 years, I just figured out the other day, just by doing that, when he gets to age 65, he will have $1.5 million in that account. Just by setting aside his 15%. And his income is not huge, because a lot of what military people get is like clothing allowance, food allowance, things like that. So his income itself is not huge. So he's not putting a giant amount into that account. So if you start early and put in as much as you possibly can, it's amazing how much you can get in a retirement account. Now you might say, well, I didn't do that all the time. That's fine. Start doing it now. Now I'm not going to tell you exactly how to invest it or where to invest it. There's people out there. And by the way, if you ever use a financial planner, look for one that's not trying to sell you a bunch of stuff. Like not trying to sell you a bunch of insurance and all these kinds of things. Look for one that just really wants to educate you about how finances work and how they can best help you to do that and not charge you a huge fee. So it's just a little extra piece of advice. And if you have kids, please teach them immediately about making wise financial decisions early. Like from a very small age, even when they're toddlers, you can start telling them, showing them how you spend money, how you make decisions. Let them be in on the family decisions about how we spend our money. Are we going to take a vacation this year? Yes or no? And then if we do, how are we going to get that money? Where's that money coming from? Let them see how those choices are made. Because the kids that I find in school that really grasp onto financial concepts and are able to handle them in a proper way are ones that have seen it from their homes first, not ones that are coming in. It's like, well, my mom and dad, they don't know, they don't have a budget, they don't know what they're doing, and I just don't want to be like them. I've heard that before too, so let's not be that way. And then it's very important, and this goes back to the whole divorce thing, the whole household needs to be on the same plan. If you have a different plan than your spouse or your kids, then it's not going to work. There's going to be disagreements, and this may take some time to all get on the same page if you haven't been before. But you need to have a discussion about, you know what, let's set some goals. And where are we actually going? Are we following a path, or are we just going anywhere that the wind blows? So if you can get a whole household on the same plan, then peace can occur, and you can all be feel good about the place you're going. And then a big thing today is protecting your identity. The FCC has a campaign called Deter, Detect, Defend, and you really need to take steps to make sure your identity is not stolen, because that can be a big financial problem for you. You can suddenly find out that people have charged up credit cards on you, set up accounts in your name, stolen your social security number. So please be careful of what you do with your mail. If you have things that come with personal information, shred them before you put it in the garbage. There's actually people, I have not heard of this happening in Waverly, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. They'll go through your garbage to look for things. People will go in your mailbox and steal things out of there to try to find your identity. It's crazy what people go to. I once got a call from my bank saying, hey, did you book airline tickets to go to, I think it was like Kenya? No, I didn't actually. So someone in Florida had gotten my credit card number and tried to book airline tickets to Kenya. How they got it, I don't know. But the bank caught it, fortunately, and stopped it. It never happened. But banks can only do so much if we don't help them. So we need to be very careful with our personal information. Don't give out information to people that don't need it. If someone calls you and asks for information, no one that really needs your personal information will ever call you on the phone. Like the bank will say, come in and talk to us. They won't say, hey, give me your social security number on the phone or give me your bank account number. That will never happen. So if somebody asks for things, if something makes you uncomfortable, then just stop and think, why are they asking you for this information? And very few people really need your personal information. Your employer, your bank, insurance agent, people like that. And put money in its proper place. And what I mean by that is not putting it into the bank, although that's a good thing. Put it in its proper place in your life. So many times money just rules everything we do. It's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay the bills this month? Or I need to make more money. Or I have to pay this bill. My kids are going to go to college. And you start freaking out. Money is a tool in our lives. It should not rule our lives. There's so many other things in our life that are so much more important than money. If you can put it in its proper place and proper perspective, then it's just one of those things about our life that happens and we take care of and we manage. You don't want your finance to manage you. You want to manage your finances. And you can do that by doing those things that we've talked about already today. And if we do that, then we will get to the place where we're at the top of the mountain and we have actually money that we can do things with and not just spend on ourselves, but we could like help other people, which is very cool because statistics show that people that are generous through their money are actually happier, they have better control of their finances, and they live a life of more freedom rather than being controlled by the dollars in their bank account. So that's really the place we want to go. It's a place where we are free from the worries of debt, free from the worries of am I going to make enough to get by, free from the worries of can my kids go to college or not. And I know that's seems like, oh, that's just a simple path. Well, it is, but it's difficult to do because it all goes back to the needs and wants. What do we really, really need? And what do we really, really want? You know, do we want something because somebody told us we want it, or do we want it because it's going to make our life better, make our relationships better, and give us the freedom that we want? So, we made it to the mountaintop. Any questions? About anything? So I encourage you to take that sheet home, and if you have a spouse or other people at home, talk about it. Talk about what are really our needs and wants. And understand you're going to talk about a financial literacy program that's coming up.
Yes.
Yeah, take part in that. So
yes.
Go ahead.
So I think probably some of you have already heard about the Financial Fitness Challenge. It's going to be starting on Monday. It's actually an outside vendor that we've gotten grant funding from, so it's offered for free for all employees. So you're going to get an email. Everybody at Waverly Health Center is going to get an email from this company on Monday. I think the email is like support@financialfitnesssomething.com. So that's what it's going to come from. It's going to give you a link that's going to take you to their webpage. So you'll take, if you want to participate in the challenge, you'll take a pre-test of kind of where you're at with your finances, and it'll spit out kind of like a financial score, more or less, of where you're at. And then it'll give you a personalized plan of videos and tutorials that you can watch. So the actual challenge piece of it is to complete 12 of these tutorials within 8 weeks. You can do it here at work, you can do it from your phone, from your tablet, at home, anywhere. And then after you take those 12 tutorials, then you'll take a post-test, and hopefully your financial knowledge has improved. So that's the goal of the program. If you do participate in the wellness program, there'll be 40 points awarded for Simply Well. So that's an incentive for those of you who participate in that. Let's see.
Does that go towards this year or towards
it'll go
year?
towards the next year.
Next year.
Yep, next year's.
Is it the same one as it was last year?
It's very similar. They've kind of restructured it, so I think there's some new programs, and I think I didn't completely understand what the program structure was last time, but they did tell me that it's changed a little bit. But it's the same company, same general idea. So does anybody have any questions about that? Starts on Monday, 8 weeks long. And I'll get all the information from them, so you don't have to worry about telling me whether you've completed it or not. I don't get any kind of personal information. I just get this person completed it, this person did not. That's it. So you don't have to worry about your finances being released to anybody here or anything like that. It's all 100% confidential. There's flyers over there if you want more information about what's going on, but basically all you need to know is you're going to get an email on Monday asking you to join, and if you want to, you can go ahead and go through with that. If you don't, you can just ignore it. So,
Be a great use of your time. I think I've seen programs like this, and they can be very effective. Give you a lot of good information about things to do, kind of similar to what we talked about today.
yep.
In a more in-depth formats.
Yeah, I think they said they have like over 400 tutorials on the program, and it'll give you suggestions based on your test results or whatever, what might be good for you, but you don't necessarily have to follow that either. You can pick and choose if you want to focus mostly on retirement, that's what you're most interested in, you can just watch the videos on retirement or savings or getting out of debt or whatever. So lots of options there. All right, guys. Thanks for coming. Make sure you get signed in before you leave.